Do you want to organize your finances, create wealth, and transform your wealth into a legacy? It's time to start today.
Welcome to Octane. My name is Andrew Wall. I'm the managing partner of CPA for IT.
And I'm Rachel Stedman, head of customer care.
Our new podcast designed to give your small business the fuel it needs to succeed. Hello again, everybody. It's Andrew Wall. I'm back with another episode of Octane. I am once again here with my amazing co-host, Rachel Stedman. Rachel, how's your week been?
Hi, guys. I can't complain. You know, the weather's getting warmer. I can't wait for the summer to be able to live again. Doing pretty good.
So this week we've got an interesting topic that it's interesting that we would do a whole episode dedicated to the chart of accounts. But I think it's really important for people to understand what a chart of accounts is, why we have a standardized chart of accounts, and what they should be doing and how they should be using their standard chart of accounts. So maybe first we can start with understanding what exactly is a chart of accounts, Rachel?
Chart of accounts. Okay, so the chart of accounts, it ties hand in hand in terms of what your different expenses are, having that idea of what the expenses are. And the chart of accounts is the coded categorization of said expenses that is then reported in which is both used actually, I should say, for bookkeeping purposes as well as for filing the tax returns, right? So in terms of, some expenses, people know off the top of the head, okay, I have automobile, I have meals and entertainment, I have my home, internet, etc., these different things. But then when you're utilizing a bookkeeping tool, it's pretty much a blank canvas, right?
Yeah.
And your chart of accounts is, you being able to record what the different type of expenses are, or the categorization of expenses. And then when your transactions are being recorded, you have to match those transactions. So it's not just transactions sitting there doing nothing, right? It has to be tied to a chart of account so that when we're looking from a bookkeeping standpoint, we can see the summary of what are all of the expenses associated to said expense on the chart of accounts, right? So
and also to understand, there's certain aspects we want to understand in your business. I mean, we're looking at your revenue. So your chart of accounts, I guess it consists of every single account that is going to affect your income statement and your balance sheet, and ultimately your tax returns. And so everything that your business does from a financial standpoint has to be mapped back to an income statement or a financial statement, and ultimately a tax return. And we want to do that in a way that obviously provides the government the information they need to be able to take away the money that they want from your business, and to do that as efficiently as we can and to minimize.
It's give to Caesar what is Caesar's, Andrew.
And the goal is not only to file the tax returns, but also to provide you some financial information, right? And so the chart of accounts is a tool that helps us to map the individual transactions that take place throughout your business to these various financial tools that we will use, including financial statements, financial reports, and tax returns. And you can do all sorts of custom reports depending upon your individual business needs. And we have been specializing in a very specific industry, service-based professionals, since 1984, for a very, very long time. And over that period of time, we've created a standard chart of accounts that we use for our clients to be able to help map their financial information to a set of financial statements, to a set of tax returns, and also to be able to provide a special report that we do for every one of our clients, which we call our benchmarking analysis. And our benchmarking analysis allows us to compare your financial information against the database that we've been keeping since 1984 to show you how you compare to your financial averages and medians in the individual fields that you work in. And we can only do that because we have a standardized chart of accounts. Just like if you want to build out these custom reports for your business, you need to have a standardized chart of accounts that you are using. And those could include things that you want to track specific to your individual business. And within a chart of accounts, there's this whole concept of doing things like sub-accounts, where things can roll up into another account. Think of it like a hierarchy. So it's a relatively straightforward concept if you think of a chart of accounts as just a way of organizing your financial information into a standardized format that you can use to provide financial reporting.
It
So
gives you
it's
good financial analysis, right? Of
yes,
depth. And it's like, it's funny that you mentioned about the subcategories. It's really good because sometimes we have clients that, okay, they want to track their revenue, but then maybe they might want to have sub accounts for their revenue, because maybe you have different streams of revenue within the business, and that's
mhm,
important. Or maybe even some of your expenses that you want to have different sub, that yes, you know what the total is from a standpoint of, okay, that's what we're reporting on the financial statements, that's what we're submitting to the government, but maybe you want to have a little bit more broken down data of the finances of the business. So it definitely does help.
absolutely. And so our chart of accounts that we provide to our clients, which you can find on the free resources of our website, that can be imported into pretty much all the major financial bookkeeping tools that we recommend and endorse. And of course, you can just use it if you're using it in Excel or what have you. And you can even customize that chart of accounts. What we do ask is that if, for the sake of allowing us to be able to roll up and compare to our benchmarking analysis, that you create, instead of creating a whole new account, that you create a sub account. So if you want a greater breakdown of your advertising, you want to know, hey, how much advertising do I spend at Google? How much advertising do I spend in magazines? And it could be by vendor, it could be by something more specific to your individual needs. Now, some of the great things just to know as well is, again, some of the tools that we love and endorse now allow you to get some subcategorization by using things like tags and breaking out by vendor without even having to do any sub accounts. So the purpose of the accounts is to provide greater financial analysis. But there are also now new tools that allow us to provide greater financial analysis without having to modify that chart of accounts. So the one caveat that I always say to people is be very conscious in modifying your chart of accounts. Do not just go into your chart of accounts in whatever tool that you're using and start creating accounts willy-nilly. Any creation or addition to this should be a well thought out, conscious decision as to why. And I would also strongly encourage a conversation with your accountant and bookkeeper before you add a chart of account. One of the things too, you'll see on some of the new cloud-based tools is they're starting to limit the amount of accounts that you have. And if you go over a certain amount, you're going to be bumped into a higher tier and pay more money to be able to have more chart of accounts. So the chart of accounts really important to helping your business organize and categorize your individual transactions. But don't just go off ad hoc and create your own custom chart of accounts. If you're going to create a new one, then you feel it's justified to add some categories. Before you do, have a conversation with your accountant, your bookkeeper, to make sure that, hey, that does make sense. Or is there another way that you can provide the financial analysis that you need without adding a new chart of account?
The other thing as well, Andrew, which is important with the chart of accounts, it's very important that individuals are aware of what are the expenses that are associated to those specific chart of account items, right? Because
Yeah,
sometimes
it's great to have a name, but what goes under this name, right?
exactly, right. It makes a big difference. So for example, sometimes when clients think about an automobile deduction, they think, okay, everything associated to the automobile goes on the automobile. But when we look at something like parking, which may be associated to your automobile, that goes on the travel and not
Right.
automobile. So it is very important that you are cognizant of what those deductions that are associated to those chart of accounts, so that when you're doing your bookkeeping, you are categorizing them and putting them in the accurate chart of accounts.
Right. So that benchmark makes sense. I mean, on the flip side of that, we see people who go and put their auto insurance under insurance instead of under
Yes, that's actually a big one too.
automobile.
Yeah, that's very big. Yeah.
And the great news is we have a whole podcast dedicated to what can you expense, which goes through that chart of accounts that we use. help you better understand the types of things that you can expense. And of course, we've got an entire webinar dedicated to that, as well as a guide that you can download from our website that gives you all of our standard chart of accounts and what types of things you would normally find under that standard chart of account classification. So I think, chart of accounts, relatively straightforward, easy peasy concept. But if you've never dealt with it before and you're not familiar, it can be one of those things that for us as accountants and bookkeepers, Rachel, we're like, yeah, chart of accounts, why do we need to discuss that? But for people who are brand new to this, it's very easy to go off the rails and to do things that might make your accounting and bookkeeping messier than it needs to be. And if we, as your accountants, come in and we have to clean up your chart of accounts, that's time. If we have to even just merge individual transactions into one of our standard chart of accounts so we can do that benchmarking, that's time. And time is money. And so the objective here, as always, help you organize your finances, create wealth, and transform wealth into a legacy. So the better organized your financial set of books is, the better job that we're going to be able to do for helping you create wealth and transform wealth into a legacy.
100%.
So on that note, we'll wrap it up here. And thank you guys for your time. We'll be back next week with another amazing episode. Rachel, we'll see you soon.
Bye, Andrew.